Possibly, I don't know. There are no disclaimers here on the video.
Just good to see you guys. Haven't seen you for several weeks. So.
Thank you so much for the devotion,
One? Was it just one? Okay.
thank you so much for the devotion, it's very good.
I
Did
got
you
a
get one?
copy
You have
here,
one from
so-
last time,
I
Tom?
think you
Yeah,
need.
okay.
So this is the new one.
Right.
So Julie must be writing another book, my daughter.
Oh,
All right.
And because something she posted, yeah, leads me to think she is. She don't tell us what she's doing, but I kind of think that she must be.
Okay.
What do you think it's about?
I have not a clue. She has my Jewish information. I did find that out. That's praise the Lord. I at least know where it's at.
Well, good.
I was worried. I couldn't figure out what it was.
All right. Well, we're in Revelation chapter 3. And before we start, if you want, well, if you can, there's water, there's coffee. There's over there's tea if you want it. There's cookies over here. You want a cookie? Judy? No cookies for her.
Coffee over there? No.
I got water. That's what I wanted.
All right, and I'm good. I have my coffee, so I'm good. All right. Well, we are in chapter 3. We're actually going to be in verses 7 through 13. Okay. So let's see, David.
That's me.
Why don't, if you'll read verses 7 through 13 first of chapter 3.
Okay. This is to the church in Philadelphia.
Right.
To the angel of the church in Philadelphia, write. Now, all of this is in red in my Bible, so this is
Jesus talking.
right.
Right. Yeah.
These are the words of him who is holy and true, who holds the key of David. What he opens, no one can shut. What he shuts, no one can open. I know your deeds. See, I have placed before you an open door that no one can shut. I know that you have little strength, yet you have kept my word and have not denied my name. I will make those who are of the synagogue of Satan, who claim to be Jews, though they are not, but are liars, I will make them come and fall down at your feet and acknowledge that I have loved you, since you have kept my command to endure patiently. I will also keep you from the hour of trial that is going to come upon the whole world to test those who live on the earth. I am coming soon. Hold on what you have, so that no one will take your crown. Him who overcomes, I will make a pillar in the temple of my God. Never again will he leave it. I will write on him the name of my God, and the name of the city of my God, and the new Jerusalem, which is coming down out of heaven from my God. And I will also write on him my new name. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches.
All right. Thank you. All right. So let's start by asking you, what does Jesus say about himself right off the bat? And I have 4 things written down there.
He's talking about an open door that no one can shut.
But what does he say about
he's
himself?
holy and true.
Yeah, he's holy and true.
Okay.
He holds the key of David.
Right.
Okay.
So
And he
that
opens
must
and no one
mean-
shuts.
That
Okay.
must mean when speaking of the key of David, that's the key to the heaven or key to the Jerusalem or what's it?
Well, the key of David, we're not actually told what exactly that means, but it does have something to do with the fact that he's the one that unlocked. And this is how I see it, okay? Because we are talking about a key, is that here he is opening up all the promises that were made to David.
It's just like he's opening a chest
Right.
and everything was inside.
Everything that's inside is now available. All right.
It's pretty exciting.
Like, for example, and he's the key to it. It remains shut unless he is
The one that opens.
the one that opens it. That's why he's the one that opens and no one can shut. He's the one that shuts and no one can
So
open.
the reason he says the key of David, it was the promises to David,
Right,
and Christ is holding that key.
right. And in fact, he's the one that
So
opens
there
it.
it is. It could be for everyone, maybe.
Well, it is.
Yeah.
It is. Because here, I want to show you, if you will turn to, I gotta get there.
I gotta shut this thing off.
It's distracting.
Isaiah 55.
It's distracting.
Mm-hmm.
If you'll turn to Isaiah 55, all right?
Okay.
Isaiah 55. All right, so I'll start at verse 1, okay? Come everyone who thirsts, come to the waters. And he who has no money, come buy and eat. Now, I mentioned this at the Tuesday meeting, but the word, when you're being at, I mean, you have no money, but you're told to come buy. All right. What that means is that the currency that God receives is not financial. You can't buy from God with money what he has. But there is something that you can do. And what he's saying here is that when he's talking about water and food, he's talking about hungering and thirsting. If you have a hunger and a thirst for what God has, then you have the currency to buy what he has in mind. And all of that's based on faith. Okay, it's believing.
And my God shall supply your need.
Believe.
And that's what he's doing.
That's what he's doing. Okay. Or as Jesus says in Matthew 5, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. It's that hungering and thirsting for God and for all that Jesus has. That's the entryway into receiving what he has. Okay, come buy wine and milk without money and without price. Why do you spend your money for that which is not bread, and your labor for that which does not satisfy? Listen diligently to me and eat what is good, and delight yourselves in rich food. So the way into eating and receiving is listening diligently. Okay, in other words, I can't get enough. I need to hear this, and I'm going to put it into practice. Okay, incline your ear, which is humbling yourself and listening. By the way, the way I understand that, inclining your ear. First of all, it's like when if you're a student, it used to be that if the class was doing something and then you had to go see the teacher, you would come up to the desk and they would have you bring the book, and then you would bend your ear down to listen. Well, that's a sign of humility. All right. I don't know. I need to hear from you. And I'm bowing, my ear to listen, with both ears, listening. And what that to me personally speaks to is, if we're going to receive from the Lord, then we just need to remember one thing. I don't know it. He does. So my opinion really doesn't matter. It's what he says that matters. And so I got to leave my opinion out of things. and just go with what he says. It says here, incline your ear and come to me and hear, that your soul may live. Now here's the point I wanted to make here. And I will make with you an everlasting covenant, my steadfast sure love for David. All right. So the everlasting covenant is the covenant of the cross. That's what Jesus has done for us on Calvary's Hill. And it brings in the promise that God made to David. And that promise was that you will not lack a man to sit on your throne. Okay? And his kingdom would remain. Well, if you look at history, you find that David's kingdom didn't last past Solomon. All right? But there was always a guy there until the exile.
Till the when?
Until the exile
Yeah.
into Babylon. But there were still descendants of David. Jesus is the descendant of David.
Yeah.
And he is now ascended to sit on the throne at the right hand of God the Father.
Mhm.
So now the promise of David that his descendant, his Lord, would rule and reign on his throne, and that the kingdom of God, the kingdom of Israel, would last forever. And all the blessings of Abraham would come, has now been brought to fruition. It's here. Jesus is the key to this promise, if you will. All right? He's the fulfillment of that hope that a king will reign. You know, you look at the Gospel of Matthew, for example, but that's true for Luke also, when it talks about the genealogy of Jesus. You go to Matthew, and we're talking about, you know, king after king after king after king after king of Judah and Israel that's related to Jesus. All right, he is when you read, and this is what a lot of Jews, when they come to faith, they're reading Matthew and they're going, he's a son of Abraham, he's a son of David, and if he's the son of David, he must be the Messiah. Because the expectation was that the Messiah will be the son of David. All right. But the other thing that's mentioned that they weren't expecting, but the Bible does say, is that not only will he be the son of David, but he'll also be God in the flesh. That's why Jesus says to the Pharisees, well, whose son is David's? Well, it's the Messiah. Well, it's David's son. And then he quotes Psalm 110 and says, you know, why then does David say by the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, the Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies your footstool. If the Messiah if David calls the Messiah Lord, then how can he be his son?
Okay. Isaiah is, we're in Isaiah now.
Right, I have Isaiah 55
Yes,
on that one, yeah.
Isaiah is after David,
After David, yep,
and he's one of the major prophets.
right.
And he speaks about the crucifixion and resurrection just like it's already happened.
Right, Isaiah 53. Yep.
So
So it's really amazing.
Well, and if you take Isaiah 53, actually even the last part of Isaiah 52, go through 53 and then 54 and 55, all of that is really one piece, because you find that the servant, the Messiah, will cause the nations to become holy, because they will come to know the Lord through him. He's going to be rejected by his own people. He's going to rise from the dead. He's going to intercede, make us righteous because of what he did. And then because of that, he's going to bring redemption to Israel. And 55 speaks of eventually the redemption of Jerusalem and the people of Israel. So David, the other thing then about the key of David, and this is an important aspect too, because in Revelation, all right, you have, people tend to look at Revelation and they tend to look at, well, okay, so what's going to happen with regards to the coming of the Antichrist and then the coming of Christ? And that's legitimate because that's there. But the other thing that we need to see here is that really after the first part, after we're done with Jesus breaking the seals, okay, and we'll get to that, there's a lot of time spent on Israel, on the 144,000, on what's going to happen in Jerusalem, on the fact that the temple is going to be built there again, and then you have this 144,000 that goes out and proclaims the gospel to the nations.
And they're Jewish.
And they're Jewish. They're all Jewish. And so what you have is you have redeemed Israel that is moving forward with the gospel. And then comes the Christ.
I just like to meet some Jewish.
Yep.
No kidding.
Well,
Is this before Christ returns?
yes, it's before Christ returns. But it's during that period of
So
tribulation.
that'll be the third temple,
That'll be the third
but
temple.
there's going to be a fourth temple.
Right, there's going to be a temple that comes, like we read in Zechariah. That temple will be the one that's actually from God.
That's where Christ reigns 1,000
That's
years.
where he reigns.
Yeah.
This third temple is something that they come up with on their own, with the help of the
They're
Antichrist.
working on that already.
They're working on that already.
Mhm.
They are. And
So have there been 2 temples already?
yes, the first temple was the Temple of Solomon. Actually, it was the temple that, this is the thing I really think it's fun to look at. All right, so the first temple came to David really in the same way, very much the same way as the plans for the tabernacle came to Moses. It was a divine vision. And so Moses received what the tabernacle was to look like, and then he related that to the people that were going to build it. And they had the spirit to build it right, so they built it according to the plan. David, we find that in 2 Chronicles. David hands over the plans of the temple, which he said he got from God, and he gave it to Solomon. And there was a period of time there that you don't really is a little more detailed, which I like, where there was a time there when there was basically a co-regency or David was still king, but Solomon was essentially the active king, whereas David was there, but he was too sickly to do anything. And then when David died, then Solomon took over
So now they build this temple, the first temple.
the first temple, and that remains until 557 BC.
So was not the Ark of the Covenant put inside the temple?
Yes, it was. Yep.
Okay, and that was destroyed. Was the Ark destroyed with that thing?
We are actually told in Jeremiah that the ark was no longer around before the destruction of Jerusalem. But he says, don't worry about it, you'll never miss it, because I'm going to do something where that will not be something to care about. Well, that's the Messiah coming. All right. Jesus is God present with
So
us.
they didn't need that other.
No, but we're not told what happened to it. And there are a lot of people that have different theories that the Levites hid it somewhere. There's one theory that has some there's some evidence to suggest that the ark was carried away before Nebuchadnezzar came with the army to destroy Jerusalem and the temple, and that the ark was taken by Jewish people that went to Egypt, and eventually they went down to Ethiopia. There is a very large Jewish population in Ethiopia, and there's also, that was, if you remember, in Acts, the Ethiopian eunuch came to Jerusalem for a feast. He met, on his way home, he met Philip, became a Christian. And so there was, and actually there became a Christian community in Ethiopia because it went to the Jew first, and they were Jewish. Okay. So anyway, there's a building there where they claim that the ark is there. Okay. And there was one priest there, and it's under a Christian group. They will not let you go in and look at it. But they claim that there was a guy that, he was replaced. They have somebody else there. And he claims to have seen it. It's there, and inside are still the commandments. That's the only thing left there, are the commandments.
It's in God's hands.
It's in God's hands. But the thing is that even though there's some evidence there, because they actually have replicas of the trumpets that were made. And the reason we know that they're the right trumpets is because when you look at the in Rome, there's an arch, Titus's arch. Titus was the one that sacked Jerusalem the second time in 70 AD. And in his triumph, they actually carved in the stone the triumph when he came in, and you have the menorah, but also the trumpets. And the trumpets that are there are exactly the same shape, size, and as what you find in Ethiopia. So it's possible that this was transferred there. Now, whether it is or not, I don't know. But there's some good evidence that it might be there. There's some other people that think it might be hidden underneath where the second temple was after they rebuilt the temple. We do know that when the second temple was built, there was nothing in the Holy of Holies. Nothing there. Josephus, who was one of the priests, as well as a historian, so there's nothing in there. It just, they had the curtain for the Holy of Holies, and you had the incense that you pinched, but there was nothing, there was no mercy seat there. So it was gone. It appears it was gone before Nebuchadnezzar destroyed the first temple. And where, the Bible never tells us where it went. And evidently, according to God, it's not something we should worry about.
All I can say is you can remember a lot of facts that I can't.
I know.
But that was the first temple. All right. The first temple, by the way, the thing is that the reason that it's hard to tell what happened with the ark is because, you know, there are a couple of times before the temple was destroyed, the first temple, where armies came in and they defeated the army of Judah, and they came in and they took treasure from the temple. All right. So like you had, I mean, even Israel came in and they took treasure from the temple. Egypt came in and took treasure from the temple. Babylon came in the first time. They did not sack the temple the very first time. They took items from the temple, but none of them took the ark. So we don't know what happened because Nebuchadnezzar, when they gave what they had, the Persians defeated Babylon, and they gave to the Jewish people back the items that were taken from the temple so they could go rebuild the temple, right? The ark was not mentioned. So the ark was not taken to Babylon. It's not there.
It's holy.
It's holy. It wasn't there. Well, and the thing is that when the one time it was captured, it was taken into the Philistine cities, and not only did the false gods in their temple fall down and get all broken up, but then he brought a plague upon the cities that they kept trying to change it off. Here, you have it now. No, you have it. No. And finally, they put it on a wagon and sent it off, and it went back to the people of Israel.
You know, Pastor, I think that follows through, regarding the building that is supposedly in Ethiopia.
Yeah.
Ethiopia's been overrun numerous times. People kind of leave their hands off of it.
Right. Right.
And I think,
Interesting.
yeah,
They
Israel.
sense holiness.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Well, the thing is that when the pagan world has tried to mess with it, it's never gone well with them.
Yeah.
Okay,
And so they basically are like,
Yeah.
don't touch it.
we won't, no, y'all have it. Yes, it's yours. Have it. Bye. But the thing is that the second temple was built when the people of Judah and some of the people of Israel with them came back into the land of Judah after Cyrus, the Persian king. But by the way, speaking of Isaiah declared Cyrus by name. Let's see, Isaiah was written sometime in the 700s BC. All right, and then the Cyrus the Great, he conquered Babylon. Now Babylon had already destroyed the temple, so between when Isaiah wrote,
Now Cyrus was a Persian.
he was Persian. All right, Persia was another empire.
which is
Iran
today.
today, and they went around. It was sometime around the end of the 500s BC when Persia came and conquered the Babylonian Empire. Okay, so roughly 200 years before Cyrus is even around, God says through Isaiah, I call you by name, Cyrus. You do not know me, but I call you to restore Judah and restore the temple. All right. Well, the temple wasn't destroyed yet either. But actually, you'll find even in the Psalms that God had already told them. By the way, God had already told them through Moses in Deuteronomy, you're going into exile. Because you're not going to follow my laws. But when you're in that land, you'll call on me, and I'll remember my covenant. That's why Daniel is looking at the law of Moses and Jeremiah, and he's going, well, Lord, now's the time. Do something. So anyway, Isaiah, the thing about Isaiah, the reason that so many people have read Isaiah, scholars, okay, have read Isaiah, and they want to claim that Isaiah was written by like 3, 4, 5 different people, okay, is because the prophecies in Isaiah are so exact that they cannot believe that God is actually making this claim 200 years before Cyrus is even born.
I was reading here that Martin Luther is commenting on that.
Yeah,
There's a whole section where he writes about that.
yeah. I mean, it's an absolutely amazing fact
Yeah.
of the Bible is the only book, quote, holy book that has this.
Because it truly is.
Because it truly is God's word.
Yes.
Okay. So anyway, I digress. I'm sorry. But anyway, so 200 years. So Cyrus came back and he declared what was promised in Isaiah. He told, and it wasn't just the Jewish people. He actually told a lot of different groups of people, go back to your places, build your places of worship, and pray for me in those places. They actually found the cuneiform tablet where he made that statement. And he made it not only to Israel, but he made it to a variety of different nations. And so they went back, it was somewhere around 520 something, I believe. So they built the second temple, the temple. And then Herod the Great renovated it. So that it was, by the time Jesus was doing ministry, it was like one of the wonders of the ancient world. That temple fell and was totally destroyed. Totally. In 70 AD. And Jesus said that in fulfillment of Daniel, all right, that it would remain a desolation and it would be trampled on, and the Temple Mount especially, but also Jerusalem, trampled on by the Gentiles and ruled by the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles has come to an end. All right. And we know that we're getting close because in 1967, Jerusalem came under Jewish rule.
Yeah.
The Temple Mount came under Jewish authority,
Yeah.
but they gave it back to the Muslims. All right. But now they're talking about building a temple. And there are even some Muslims who are saying, well, there's room on the Temple Mount for two.
It's like you and we.
Right. So what I'm saying is that, and this happened after the Abraham Accords. After the Abraham Accords, there are actually some Muslims now who are saying, oh yeah, no, there's room right here for the Jewish temple. Now, it would be fascinating if somebody comes in and manages to get that agreement together. So they start building that temple on the Temple Mount, then this is what I want to say to all of us. If that's happening while we're watching it, then get your bags packed because we're on our way home.
Yeah.
Praise the Lord.
Yes.
We don't need a lot.
No, just be ready.
Yeah.
But get your affairs in order and make sure that people know, look, if you're still here,
Yes.
this is who you need to know.
Just like the situation I had with the individual when I said to her, we were talking about having a relationship with Jesus. And she told me, I have never prayed that.
Oh,
You know, we need to be about the Father's business.
Yeah.
And we're reluctant to step on anybody's toes.
When
And,
this person was claiming to be a Christian,
well, she acted like it. You know, I need that all written down in plain, lay terms, you know, the order of things. Oh, that's over my head.
Well, I can write it down for you if you like.
Yeah, that's gonna be a lot.
Well, no, I can, here, I'll do it this way, all right? Make it very
Yeah.
simple for you. First temple,
Yes,
David and Solomon,
okay,
destroyed in around 557
yeah, okay, I got that.
BC. Second temple, built by the Jewish and, the Judean and some other tribes were there too, of Israel. These were the exiles coming back from Babylon. And that would have been, they started it, I think, sometime in the 500s BC
early,
or late 400s. Okay.
Okay, say 400 BC.
Well, late 400,
Okay,
late 400s or early 500s BC. I'm blanking on the exact date. And then that was destroyed in 70 AD
By Rome.
by Rome, by a man named Titus, Titus. Okay.
and the stones are there
Yeah, they are.
for both.
have you
The
been
first-
there?
And I mean, the archaeology now, recent years, it's there, the
Yeah.
remnant, you know.
Well, you know, one of the blessings. See, one of the blessings of the fact that the Muslim leadership hates Jewish history so much. One of the blessings of that is that they started excavating the Jewish Mount, the Temple Mount, just to get rid of anything Jewish, right?
The evidence,
And pour it over the end of that wall, right?
Okay,
Of the Temple Mount. And so they actually have a Temple Mount sifting project, archaeology. And so they've been sifting, that's where they've been finding these
artifacts.
well, they have these things that are actually, you would tie around a letter and send it.
Oh, okay,
It's like a seal that would
Okay.
tell you who it was from. Well, they found some of Baruch, Hezekiah.
oh my goodness.
Baruch was Jeremiah's secretary.
Okay,
They have his
okay,
as well.
wow,
They're finding all kinds of people that are actually named in the Old Testament as being officials at this time. And so, I mean, all that stuff is coming up. So the more you want to say it didn't happen, the more God obliges you to show you that it did.
Yeah.
So. All right, so anyway, the key of David is that Jesus is the one that opens up all the promises that God has made of redemption. All right, for Israel and for you and for me. Now he's the Holy One. And by the way, that speaks of his divinity. He's the Holy One. God says, "Be holy, for I am holy." It also is in Isaiah and the other prophets. God refers to himself as, "I am the Holy One of Israel." Okay. He's the true one. Well, he's the way, the truth, and the life. All right. He is incapable of deceit. That's why it's important to remember that it says, like in Hebrews, for example, that we know that God cannot lie. By the way, I love the word cannot because it's better than won't.
Oh, yes.
Because won't means that it might be possible for him to lie, but he's promised not to. Cannot means that it is, God doesn't have that ability. He is not able to lie. Sometimes it's good that you find out that God has some limitations. He's not limited in his power or in his knowledge or anything else, but he doesn't have it in him to lie or do evil. It's just not there. Praise the Lord.
Yeah. Sometimes I say little white lies, but those are even just as bad as the lies.
Yeah. So you might as well just stop it right now. Yeah.
Yes,
This is fresh.
Amen.
yes,
We'll probably post this thing.
yes.
That's opening the door just a crack, you know.
Yeah.
I know. But sometimes it's not. Sometimes I just can't say the truth. So I shouldn't say anything at all.
Well, no, what, you know, I can't, because sometimes we're sitting there and I actually, I remember, it was a very awkward thing. All right. So I was in college and this guy, my roommate, his girlfriend's there. And he's asking me, no, he's not asking me. She is asking me in front of him to give my appraisal of her body. And I said, I've never noticed. I've never spent any time thinking about it. Whoa! Oh, there was an explosion in that room. You mean to tell me that I've walked in here all this time and you've never thought one thing about this? And you know, and what was really kind of interesting was that her boyfriend was sitting there going, and this is what he said. He said, what? The man's a Christian. And he's not sitting there trying to lust over you.
So was he a Christian?
No.
But he knew that.
But he knew that, right? And she's like, well. But you know, but the thing is that, see, I was trying to, you know, be diplomatic, but I was trying to be truthful without doing like, and there's an explosion coming, but you know what? That's fine. Let it go. You can, by the way, you can be truthful by just saying this. I don't want to talk about it.
Oh, hey.
Now, that's the better
That's
answer.
Yeah,
right.
I don't want to talk about
I
it.
don't want to talk
Right.
about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have no interest in that conversation.
Great.
And that would be the truth.
That'd be the truth. I really don't.
Yeah.
What a word.
By the way, I was so glad. But by the way, there was part of me that was glad that he was that he understood,
Oh, yeah.
because at that time he was also the starting linebacker for the Wyoming Cowboys, and he was a big strong man.
Good move.
He had some insight.
Yeah, because he woke me up out of a deep sleep to ask me some spiritual questions.
Oh, boy.
Well, you must have been a good witness.
Evidently,
Yeah.
because well, you know, it was like, okay, Mother. And we were good enough friends where I was able to say to him, you don't think these things through real well, do you? About some things he was doing. And he was like, apparently not. So I mean, you know, God bless him. I mean, it was a good we parted in, friendship and
What happened to this guy? I'm
I don't
curious.
know because I graduated
Yeah,
and I don't know what happened
okay.
with him, but
Yeah.
he didn't make it to the NFL. I know that.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
all right. So anyway, we find with Jesus that he opens and no one shuts, and he shuts and no one opens. That's on the other side of that. And I don't know. What do you think that means? What's that
To me,
say?
it's like, Lord, I surrender myself,
Hmm.
and he's gonna, I'm trusting him.
Right.
to do
Okay. There's
in my
that.
life.
There's that. There's something else too.
Well, I'll just read what the NIV says about it here. I think this is pretty simple. Christ is the Davidic Messiah with authority to control entrance to the kingdom.
Right. Right. Okay. That's true too.
So he controls.
Right. What else? Well, let me just suggest this, all right? Because he not only has control with regards to entry into eternal life, but he has control over every aspect of ministry here on earth and every aspect of our lives. I mean, there's a what they call sovereignty here. All right. Because well, it is and it isn't. All right. And this is what I mean by that.
Okay.
Because you can surrender all you want, but if the door's not open,
Yeah.
it's not open.
Yeah.
So what that means is that it starts with him. And then we surrender. We can't surrender without him opening the door.
Right. We have to know him first.
Yeah.
Right. And he's the one that's got to make that happen.
Right.
Okay. And the other thing is that with regards to ministry, even, all right,
Yes.
you might have this idea that, you know what, I think we should go and we're going to load up the van. We're going to
But it's not.
go down to the Spirit Lake Nation and we're going to do some evangelizing now. And those people are going to come to faith. Well, it will if he opens up that door.
Yes.
Yes. He's the one.
Yeah.
He's the one that starts it.
I think that's what this is saying here too. It's not just the kingdom for eternity, it's the kingdom for right now.
Kingdom work.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, he opens it and then he shuts it.
Right.
So, and once he opens it, no one can close it.
Yeah.
And when he shuts it, no one but he can open.
Yeah. Just that regard, I was talking to my oldest daughter last night. Anyway, I just sent the word out, I was going to Nicaragua, trying to, does any family want to come along, And Ann said, well, I don't think you got to take her so far. And I said, well, I don't think you should come unless the Lord calls you to this
Oh,
Yeah.
down here. And I think that's
Right.
That's it.
it.
That's it right there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He's in charge of that.
yeah.
Right.
Yep. He's and you see that really if you look at this church. He says he's going to open a door
Right.
to a specific group of people. And they themselves have it wasn't anything they could do.
Mhm.
It wasn't going to happen if they were making the effort alone.
Right.
God had to open that door.
And to the task to which
Right.
he
He
wants
has to
them to
prepare you
serve.
for the task.
Right. Right. That's right. That's right. So let's look at that here. I want you to look at, we're gonna move to number 2 of B because I think I want to deal with this. Who it is that he's opened the door to. I'm gonna read that, verse 8. I know your works. Behold, I have set before you an open door, which no one is able to shut. I know that you have but little power. In other words, they're not a great big church. They're not very influential. They're pretty well as far as the world's concerned, they're a dry prune. All right,
Doesn't mean anything,
they got nothing. It doesn't mean anything to God, but
but God can change that.
that's right.
Yeah.
And that's what's being said here, all right? Your outward appearance, or how big you are, or how much money, or how prestigious you are means nothing to God. He can, actually it says, he said to Paul, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in your weakness. So he can take the small things. Actually, he likes to take the small things because they tend to be humble things. Take a small guy like David, who's basically the shorty and the runt of the family, and make him king. So, there you go.
So pride isn't in,
Mhm.
it's in God.
Yes.
Right, that's right.
Yes.
Now here, he says, I know you have but little power, and yet you have kept my word and have not denied my name. All right? Keeping his word and not denying him are essential to Christian living, period. All right? Behold, verse 9, I will make those in the synagogue of Satan who say that they are Jews and are not, but lie. Behold, I will make them come and bow down before your feet, and they will learn that I have loved you. Now, the importance of that is this. We talked about this last time that this came up in one of the churches. The synagogue of Satan here is not the temple of Satan that we heard earlier, which was the temple of Zeus. This is a Jewish synagogue, but they have been denying Christ. They have been rejecting Messiah. They have been persecuting those within them that would claim to be believers in Jesus. And they really believe that they are they're the Jews. And what's interesting is that Judaism that we have now, okay, is not biblical Judaism. Judaism now is not biblical Judaism. For one, they study the Talmud more than they study the Bible. Secondly, in the Talmud, they've even changed scripture. Any scripture that actually in its original form points to Jesus, they change that. Why? Because they don't want him to be lifted up as the Messiah. And so they spend a great time saying, well, this is real Judaism. This is who we really are, the Jews. All right, even though they bear no connection at all in their faith or belief structure with any Jewish person in the Bible, because they even deny among religious Jews, many of them, believe it or not, many of them were against building a temple. You know why? Because, well, God took away the sacrifices because they're no longer necessary. We are now the light to the nations, and all we need to do is sacrifice through good works, or some such nonsense. All right. They don't even know that there is a blood sacrifice needed for atonement. They don't even know that part. When you bring that up to them, they're like, well, where is that? It's right here in your Tanakh. Well, we can't read that because the rabbi said that they're allowed to read it. Oh, well, sounds very Catholic. I mean, that's true. Unfortunately, it doesn't matter what it says. Your leaders have to tell you what it says.
Can I back up a little bit?
Yeah.
On the very beginning here, it says, to the angel of the church in Philadelphia.
Yep.
Who is the angel of the church?
Okay, yeah, thank you. When we talked about the angels, remember right there at the beginning, that the stars in the hand of Jesus, the stars were the seven stars were the seven angels. And
Okay, that's where it comes from.
that's where it comes from.
Uh,
And those seven angels, there's debate. That actually you have the Eastern Church and the Western Church. There's a debate about that. The Eastern Church actually views them as guardian angels of the churches. The Western Church sees them as being I'm talking about the early church fathers that were writing about this. They tended to view these as the established leader or leaders of those churches. And when I was looking at that, I would have to say that I tend to believe that in this case, the Western Church was probably right as far as how they understood the word angel in this particular thing. The reason being this: there are times if these were guardian angels, all right, they would be holy, without sin. They would be doing exactly what God is telling them to do. And yet you find that in these letters, that in a number of these churches, God is rebuking that angel. Well, the holy angels aren't capable of sinning. Why would they be rebuked?
Yeah.
So that's why it seems to me more likely that we're talking about human leaders that are being symbolized
okay.
in this way. Now later on, you'll find the stars do represent holy angels and also demonic angels, and we'll get into that. But again, that's kind of, we're told how to understand them at that point. All right? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. You have something? No? Tom?
Yeah, that's, we'll go different directions there.
Yeah.
All right, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
But I want you to notice that, okay, so the synagogue of Satan, the Jews there are in direct opposition to what you would call the Messianic Jews, or the Messianic community, which would be Christians. All right. And their point has always been, we're the real people of God, not them. We're the real Jews, we're the real people of the covenant, not them. Well, Jesus is going to open a door where they are going to supernaturally, these Jews are going to supernaturally realize, by golly, we were wrong.
He's gonna open their eyes.
He's going to open the eyes, he's going to take the veil
Yes.
off their blindness. And they're going to come and say, God is really with you. And what that means is that this is going to be, now remember that these congregations also reveal periods of church history. Okay? And in this particular period, there are going to be a lot of Jews that come to recognize Jesus as the Messiah and that the Christians are their friends.
We need to recognize that we need to have that role in their lives.
Right, and they will come to faith. They'll come to faith. This is where like in Deuteronomy, Moses says that God will use people of different tongues to cause the Jews to be jealous, so they will turn back to him. They'll be like, well, what? Why is this American Norwegian Tom? How in the world does he know our God better than we do? What happened there? And some of them will want to find out. Some of them will come to faith.
Yeah.
And so I really believe that in this particular church, if we're looking at church ages, we're actually at a point where this began to happen actually in the middle to late 20th century, where all of a sudden there were a lot of Jewish people who were supernaturally coming to Christ. And they were that many of them were coming into churches, and the churches, by the way, were open to their own Jewish roots. And people were individually coming to the Lord. So that now, in this day, there are actually more individual Jews who believe in Jesus now than at any other time in the history of the church, except the first century, when most of the church was Jewish. Okay.
See, that's what, having you talk about all this. So this book that Julie has, that I had a whole 3-ring binder. I had been researching all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I couldn't find it. And I said something to her, she said, Mom, I have it. Which I'm very thankful for, because, it started out because 12 miles down the road was a Jewish settlement.
Yeah.
That's how it started.
Yep.
But I have a whole lot more stuff
Yep.
in there, because I did a lot of research on it. And there are groups of Christian Jews in different places, like even here in North Dakota. But again, I can't tell you where they are, but it was so exciting
Yeah.
when I would, somehow start reading about another group and think, oh my goodness.
Well, what was really exciting to me was that, I had my Aunt Tony. My Aunt Tony came to visit while I was at the pastor's conference, but I got off early because I was wrong about when the conference ended,
Okay.
and so I could come home a day early. And so I came home right after the last little bit. It was only a 6-hour drive, and it was really nice. Got home, visited with her, and she was talking about the Jewish relatives that we had, and the fact is that it wasn't something that they talked a lot about, and primarily because at that time, if you were Jewish, you had to keep it to yourself because that wasn't welcome within the framework of the church, even though they were believers in the Lord Jesus. It just wasn't welcome. You had to give up your Jewish identity. That changed in the 1960s, 70s, and further on. And it became, but the other thing was that there was a move of the Spirit within the church as well, that we began to really look again at the Jewish roots of what we were doing, and it was in all the body. I mean, I remember when I was a little boy. I was 10. I went to my first Seder meal.
Okay.
Okay, I was 10, and we, and it was wonderfully done. I remember that much. We were in a mission congregation, and it was a reminder of the Jewish roots of Holy Communion, which I had never thought of as a little one, and many of us haven't.
Was this your first time at the Seder?
Yeah, it was my very first time. The thing I remembered about it, there are two things I remembered about it. Three. One, it was eye-opening even at 10 to know, oh, wow, okay, Jesus is Jewish. I guess I never really thought about that. All right, I've never really thought about that. Secondly, I liked hard-boiled eggs, so we have one of those. And I got my first taste of wine at 10 because we actually had wine there. for the Passover meal. So anyway, but it was like there was a real openness then to kind of explore those things and to have come into congregations those Jewish believers who were still, they were believers, but they were still practicing their some of their Jewish customs. And so I when I look at this church, Philadelphia, I really see it as a being part of that church age where there's almost like there's a coming back together, where it used to be where the Jews had to figure out whether the Gentiles were in the kingdom, and now the Gentiles are like, well, we need to look back to the Jews
Yes.
and bring it all together. I mean, I think it's significant that this is talking about the synagogue of Satan, the Jews who think they're Jews, but they're not. Because to be a real Jew is to receive your Messiah and to have him as, he's the King of David. He's the king. If you don't come to Messiah Jesus and you're a Jew, then you projected your king. Just like we projected our king if we don't come to him. So to be a real Jew, to be a real loyal Jew, is to come to Jesus. And in fact, I've heard that a number of times from Jewish men. That I've heard their witness, their testimony, and they're like, we were always told that Jesus is not for Jews. We're told that by Jews. Jesus is not for Jews. And then they open up the New Testament and they find out that Jesus is Jewish. And that he's fulfilling scripture. And that he died and rose from the dead, like Isaiah 53 says. And the thing is that many of them, when they come to faith in Jesus, when they meet him, they don't say they stop being Jewish. They think, I'm finally a complete Jew. I wasn't complete until I met Jesus. And I think, by the way, that would be true even for Gentiles. They're not a complete human being until you've been made whole by the Messiah. But anyway, I really see this as speaking of that church time that we're in right now. But we see a little bit of Laodicea coming too, lukewarmness. But we'll get to that in a minute.
Hey, Pastor.
Yeah.
I just go along on this. I'm reading this about, this is Friends of Israel stuff, books I just recently received about Jewish customs and their faith and that sort of thing. And they were talking about this all falls in with what you're saying here. They're saying that you can be, you've got a group that considers themselves to be Jews. Okay, they're heritage families, they were Jews, so we're Jews. But Judaism, the worship, this is another group, so to speak, and it's not that big a group. And they're doing all the traditional, the Orthodox Jews and all their traditions that tell us. There's the Messianic Jews, that's the Christians, not very many.
Yep.
There's a large portion of the Jews that call themselves Jews don't believe in God, period.
Right.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And they're welcome to practice Buddhism, other faiths here.
Yep.
You can do this and still color yourself a Jew.
Did you want water or coffee?
Coffee.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's
right
right there. Yeah.
But your Jew just
It's just in name.
do not believe in Jesus. We do not believe in Jesus, that large portion of it.
Yeah. And you're right. And actually what's interesting is that there are a lot of, that's where this witness by Christians causes some of these Jews that are, I don't believe in God, I believe in Buddhism or whatever, to get jealous Because all of a sudden they have to re-examine
Right.
when they meet these Christians. And they're like, what, I'm Jewish.
Yeah.
If there is a God, he should be mine,
Anything.
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And so, because here's the thing, is that and I remember seeing that. I was in New Jersey many years ago. And this is when I still actually read the paper. Which I don't now. I mean, I really
Not
don't.
much there.
No.
There isn't.
No.
But they had a free copy of the New York Times, right? They gotta give it to you free because nobody wants to read it.
Right.
Nobody wants to pay for it.
Right.
But there was a complimentary copy of it there, and there was this thing that caught my attention where it was a headline. 50% of Jews believe in God in the United States.
50%.
Yeah, and I'm sitting there
Oh,
going,
come on.
I'm sitting there going, this is something to celebrate.
They should all.
Yeah,
All of them.
you're.
All of them.
What is it? Oh, and then the other part that they were kind of hid in there, but was there. Yeah, of that 50%, yeah, about 10 to 15% actually believe in Jesus.
Yeah.
You know,
But I mean, that's sad.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think about it,
Yeah.
but Jesus is breaking in. Because again, as he opens the door and none can shut. And that's why, what's fascinating to me is to hear about the visions and the dreams that people are having. People that have no religious background, but they're Jews. And there's one guy, I was listening to his testimony. He lived on the Red Sea, all right? And he wasn't brought up there, brought up in Jerusalem, but he as a young man, he decided, I'm done with people, I'm tired of them. So he became basically a hermit on the Red Sea, fishing for a living, and doing some things that, to make money so that he could live his hermit life. Because even being a hermit requires money. Yeah. And he ran into, because God brought them, some tourists. And they were buying something from him, and they were, believers in Jesus, and they said, well, I'm telling you, it's from the Bible. No, it's not. Well, yeah, it is. Here, you can have this one, right? Give him the Bible, right? So he went home and he read it, right? And he was like, and they sent to Isaiah 53. Right? So he read it, and he's thinking about it. And so he opens up the book and he finds out that it's from a Christian publishing house. He's like, well, they probably changed it. But this is what happened. He said, but I knew that in Jerusalem, at the museum, they have the Isaiah scroll. And he read Hebrew. He said, I'm going to go read it. And it's huge. Evidently, it's very huge. So he went in there. He spent all day. He said, of course, there are no chapters or verse numbers on this thing. So I read all the way through until I found it. And I was reading it, and I stood there, and I was like,
It's real. It's true.
I cannot. And then he was like, why did they keep this from us?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the truth.
Why did they keep this from us? Because it was all right there.
Yes.
And so he did, he did more study and finally gave his life to the Lord and got saved. And now he's working for a Jewish, he's not a hermit anymore. He's working for a Jewish Christian ministry, paper, magazine, online magazine. And he said, and of course, when he told his parents, they disowned him, which is what Jesus said would happen.
Yeah.
But
Greater is he that's in you than he that's in the world.
that's right. But when he had grandchildren, then all of a sudden when he had children, then his mother was like, I gotta see my grandchildren. And so, she broke with her dad. She broke with his dad, right? And after they watched him they saw that he was such a different, more gentle, peaceful man, that while they didn't give their life to Jesus, they couldn't say anything against it either. They're like, all right,
You asked the question, not you, but why do they keep it from us?
yeah,
Well, the answer is right here, the temple of Satan.
yeah, that's right.
That's the answer why.
The enemy is covering their eyes, and he's a liar, and he wants to keep people from salvation. And that's absolutely right. That's why Jesus said, look, they're really, whether it's Jewish or Gentile, there are in the Bible just two options. It's either of God or it's of the devil.
And you either receive it or reject it.
Right. And if you reject it, then that veil falls on you, and you're led by the liar. Yeah.
I heard a pastor just the last couple of days here, he was preaching on Dante's Hell.
Okay. Yeah.
book.
Yep.
And he started reading, I thought, well, this is interesting, I've never heard a preacher preach on this before.
Yeah.
But anyway, this was written 100, 200 years ago, wherever.
Oh, much further back
Back
than
than
that.
that.
Yeah.
But Dante's view of hell, I don't know
Okay,
if
never heard of it.
spiritually came to him, this division of when he started talking about hell and come to the gates of hell. And he just started reading the inscription that was over the gate to hell there. And I thought at that time, my gosh, people, this may well be the gate to hell, all right, that he's referring to anyhow.
It said, abandon all hope. You go in there.
Abandon all hope, yeah. When you enter in, basically you made your choice.
Yeah.
And
You have no
here's where-
hope.
And here's where you're gonna spend eternity.
Well, isn't that what Paul said?
Yeah,
I do not want you to grieve as others do who have no hope. Yeah.
So can I tell a little story?
Sure.
I mean, this conversation is so exciting. I want to get my book back so I can read what I wrote.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I went to, you've done things here with Jewish people.
Mhm.
And I don't remember which organization, but it was at Bethel. And in my research started out more in locating Jewish people where they lived in the past. And there was, over in the Brinsmead area, there was some. And that's, somebody was there at this event where they were talking to us. It was a Christian organization, I can't remember which one. And somebody was there that lived in the Brinsmead area, and they had somebody with them. And it just, I know there's some Jewish people lived in the Brinsmead area in the past. So this just had me really intrigued. And it came to the end of it, and I don't know if they told me who they were, but the person that was leading this event, he and I somehow connected and had conversation. And I told him I would try to connect with those people. Well, I never could figure out how to do it. They lived someplace over by Church's Ferry. I'd have to have my book to know their name. Okay, so I'm at Fohosha Bible Camp. And it's actually a Starkweather girl who was counseling that week. And after a service, she and I went and sat outside and had this conversation. And I don't know, it was God, because she was going to college with a daughter from that family, that Jewish family. I was like, it just blew our mind,
well, are you aware of Sammy Schwartz family in Kandu? Okay.
He had the clothing store.
Yeah.
Yes,
many years.
yes,
Well,
yes,
my
yes.
dad really liked him anyway. But anyway, he had connections with the bunch over here.
Okay,
The Edmore
yes.
Cemetery bunch.
Yes,
There was an article in Kandu paper here just the last month or so about him and his family.
Yes, I think I have it,
I'll tell you that, you
yeah,
know, if you're digging into
yes,
stuff,
yes, yes.
but,
This has got me,
yeah.
I'm gonna be researching.
I have a history book that lists all the Jewish settlements in North Dakota.
Ooh, I want to read it.
I'll see if I can pick it out for you.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's inside this, it's a big book, but it's part of. in there.
Okay. And maybe I have it, but just now.
You
I'm
might
not-
have it, but.
Yeah, it's not clicking. But for some reason, there was a church, it seems like it's in Bismarck, that comprises, there are Jewish believers there. What is it, Wildlife?
Uh,
Well, there's the one in Grand Forks, the synagogue.
Yes.
Is that still active? I'm not sure.
I don't know.
See, I
Mm.
question whether there's, the people that were in Devil's Lake, it's past their time. I don't know if there's anybody living there,
Most of them left and went to the Twin Cities now,
you know, like
I think.
Moretsky's and Sharks and Glicksons and all those
Okay.
people.
Okay.
Those are the, my dad was of that age and he was friends with some of those, you know, people, but.
I remember I was in a very Jewish area. Well, since we're on the subject. But yeah, no, I lived in, well, what I heard people call at that time, this was in Kendall Lakes, Florida, around Miami. They called the place Tel Aviv West.
Oh.
Because we had.
Did they kind of congregate together?
Oh, they were huge. I mean, and I was glad, you know, I knew a lot of them. And then, you know, I mean, it was kind of like a lot of people, you know, some of them were pleasant, some of them were not, but then, you know, some of the Gentiles were pleasant, some of them were not, you know, that's just
Right.
life. But, the one, there were two things I remember. I remember, and I'm glad that I got to see it. I remember seeing the men playing games, cards, checkers, other things at the pool area
Yeah.
with their tattoos,
Oh,
their concentration camp
Is that right?
numbers
Oh, my goodness.
on there. So
Oh,
I got, so like when somebody wants to tell me, oh, that's gonna happen. Yeah, it happened. Yeah.
Yeah.
The second thing that I'll remember is that, there were Jewish folks, they were believers in God generally, but they couldn't really say that they believed in the God of the Bible. Because they didn't know who God was. They just knew there was a God. And so, you know, I often hung with them, and once in a while, they would come to church with us. But yeah, no, I mean, and then when I went to middle school, I got invited to a couple of bar mitzvahs, and I went to one. And I was the only Gentile in the room.
I was gonna say, did they invite non-Jewish people to those? or-
It was his right to invite
Oh,
his friends,
okay.
and I was one of them. So I
so
went.
you're saying the others were Jewish?
They're all Jewish, except for me.
Would be an interesting experience.
Of course, and that was one where I actually, hold on, come here, you. There, you're in there.
Yeah,
So what is it? Some kind
It's
of-
just a bug,
it was a,
little flying, like a lightning bug, but it's not.
yeah,
They're all over the place right now.
they're
Okay.
all
But-
over.
But the thing is that they'll bite, you know, they're
Okay.
just, but anyways,
Yes.
the thing is that, now that was one time where I actually said no to my mother about something that, in retrospect, when I think about it now, I realize it was just God giving me wisdom.
Mhm.
I was invited to the bar mitzvah. Well, there was somebody that she was working with who was Messianic. All right. And he said, well, that if I knew any Jewish people, to give them these tracts, right?
Okay,
He said, well, you're going to bar mitzvah, here's a tract, why don't you go give it to him? And I had it, and I looked at it, and I said, well, Mom, I'm not gonna do that. And she said, why not? I said, I believe, but I wouldn't want someone bringing me something during confirmation.
right.
That's not the place for it.
A
I mean,
private
he knows where I am, and we've talked, but, you know, I can't,
Right,
I'm not gonna sit there
yeah,
and say, let's start a war right here in the midst of this party. No, you know, I will do that later, which we did. But sometimes you gotta go with God about when's the right time.
That would be insulting him.
That's right.
yes,
You
yes.
Right.
wouldn't like him very well.
No, and that just wasn't the time to do that.
God called you to pray.
Right.
I mean, we can pray for those people.
Yep.
Yeah.
God will have to make the
Yes.
situation.
And you know what's funny though? I mean, I've always thought of this, you know, I remember these two, Mitchell and David. Mitchell and David.
They were Jews.
Yeah, Mitchell, David, and the Goy. I'm the Goy. And we were friends, right? Mitchell, David, and the Goy. And so I remember, this is after they're both bar mitzvahs and everything. And they got into some kind of argument, right? Oh my goodness. And here I was the one trying to bring reconciliation
Between
between the two.
the two that should have been getting along together.
Right.
Yes.
I'm the one trying to bring them together.
Yes.
And you know what happened?
It's over.
Because I wouldn't be somebody's friend over another one. I said, no, you're both my friends. I'm not going to choose.
Right.
Come on now. You guys have gotten arguments before. It's okay. You know, how about forgive a little bit? And so I lost them both.
There was some good wisdom there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was from God.
Get in the middle of some of these deals.
No, I mean, I remember, there are a lot of Jewish guys I was with. There's one guy. Oh, he was huge, great big mountain of a man. And he was a special ed kid, right?
Had some special needs.
He has special needs. And we're in the locker room and he is just falling for this girl. And I know because she did it to me. You know, basically she finds people who are desperate
Oh,
and pretends to be like, oh, and then she gets them to do things for her,
Okay.
right?
Sure.
And meantime, she's playing everybody.
Yeah.
who can I get?
You know. And so I went up to this guy and I was telling him, I said, come on now, you.
Yeah, you're heading for a fall.
And so I remember she saw me and I told her right up front, I said, you leave this man alone. All right. He is not capable of saying no to you.
Right, he can't defend it.
You need to stop. Oh my goodness. So we get done playing football in Phi Ed. All I know is I'm coming into the locker room and here's this great big mountain of men. I mean, thank God he didn't know how to fight because he would have killed me. He went to roundhouse me and I grabbed his hand and I just pushed him up against the wall with all my strength because I mean this guy was huge. I'm like, oh dear Lord Jesus. And fortunately the coach came out, grabbed him and It saved my life.
Oh, boy.
But the girl went and told him that I called him all kinds of stupid things.
Oh,
And, but the main thing, what was interesting is that I got invited to his bar mitzvah after that. Because he saw what she was doing,
He
And-
wasn't that stupid.
and no, and so he apologized. He said, "I want you to come." He said, "Because I was a real friend." And I said, "Well, I'd love to." And then I had to move, so I couldn't make it. But no, I mean, I have, it was we would talk about. I said, well, "What do you guys do? Where do you go?" I mean, I go to church,
Right,
but what do you guys do?
right.
You know, and they're, you know, like David would go, and I didn't know what it was called. He was like, "Okay, repeat after me. Temple,
Oh,
temple, 2 syllables, temple." And then Smarty Pants me went, "Wasn't your temple destroyed?" And he was like, "Tell me that's not the one we meant." Oh. But see, it's having those kinds of conversations. They're open to it now.
yeah.
It wasn't always that way. And so I think that's really good.
right.
And I think that's what we're seeing there in Philadelphia, this time period, where there's that openness. And we need to take our shots while we still have them.
So if we prayed, God put some Jewish people in our path that would have opened. Am I ready to face that?
Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, the only thing I would say is that if we're going to pray for something like that, please, Lord, do not let them be from New York.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
Because they have that attitude. No, send them to a place in New Jersey, somewhere that can handle those people. But you know, somewhere, somebody that's, you know, at least likable. Yeah.
I think you guys have got me so stirred that I'm going to start, just out of curiosity, finding out what the Jewish population is in North Dakota.
Yeah.
Because now, like, Julie's got this one volume, but I know I have another volume of
Oh,
stuff, but not, she's got what I want to read. After this conversation, I remember the research I did.
Yeah.
A lot.
Well, that's good. Yep.
But then that has me curious, what is she up to? Because she's the writer. And I know
Well,
she's,
it's interesting.
It is.
yeah,
It is.
You know, I think that Sammy Schwartz at Canada, when he retired,
Yes.
all that art, but they went down to Florida, retired down there, so it could have well been. It said where, and it probably was a Miami
Jewish.
area.
Yeah.
a Jewish.
Yeah, enclave there.
It was very, very Jewish.
Okay.
Way back, it was like maybe in the 70s.
Yeah.
It was very, very Jewish. And there were, but you know, I mean, I guess, you know, where I went to seminary too, there was a very large Jewish population
In
There-
that community.
in that area. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. In fact, one of the fellows who's a Messianic pastor, Kurt Schneider. He has a program, the Jewish Jesus,
Oh, yeah, right.
and but he's from that area, and
Yeah, right.
very, very, very Jewish. Not always religious, but anyway, ethnically very, very Jewish. But these people
I
were
think it could be.
these people were conservative, and when they were coming back from the synagogue, the men were always walking in front, the women were always walking behind, and if I were to say hello to them, they would not answer.
oh,
No, they I mean, the most they would do is acknowledge me with a head move
Snotty.
and move on. Well, I don't know if it's snotty, or I don't know if they're just not allowed to.
Okay. A culture thing.
Yeah, I don't know if they may not be allowed to talk to on the way home, or Gentiles or what. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. I just see it as snotty. I just thought it as, well, that's kind of different.
I suppose it's still part of their holy day.
Yeah, it's a
When they say
Sabbath.
they're
Yeah.
in that holy day.
Yeah.
Have you read Rachel Kalof's?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
oh, yeah.
it was a diary.
Yep, that was good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
You know, that's so amazing that they took what she wrote and saw the value in having that made out so the
Yes.
public could see it.
Yeah.
It seems like I've got some other things besides hers, because I've got a spot where the Jewish.
All right, but you know, here, but that brings us back to the point here.
Okay,
There's a lot that was going on. And you can see it in some television shows too, where being Jewish, all right,
okay,
and Jewish culture, and Jewish ideas, really started to take off in some of your primetime programming.
right,
I mean, sometimes with some really wrong ideas. Like, for example, it seemed like when you were watching, for example, Highway to Heaven
Oh,
was one, or if you saw there was one where you had angels, that were coming, you know, that they always were dealing with some kind of issue. They were, I used to call them, they were stupid angels, because they didn't know the way to salvation, and, you know, they were basically just,
Was that the black gal that had that
Yeah.
show and whatever they called it?
Yeah.
Angels Amongst Us or something.
not angels amongst us, but it was,
okay.
um,
So my family.
it was very popular.
Yeah.
It was very popular, but the point is that it seemed like they had a lot of Jewish characters,
Okay.
and a lot of, and they were always the good guy. They were always the spiritual ones. They were always the ones that had connection to God. They were always the ones going to heaven.
yeah.
And it was, but the point is that was something that you did not find in the 30s, 20s,
Right,
40s. They were always the bad guys. They were always the ones leading people to hell. They were drinking, you know, the blood of Christian kids. And so it went the other way. But the reason it went the other way too is because there was an awakening, even among, because they were directing these things toward Christians. There was a recognition of getting connected to Jewish root. So, you know, that to me again goes right back to this, that story gets written because there was all of a sudden this desire to know, well, let's see more Jewish
right.
stuff.
Yeah.
We're interested now.
Boy, you guys got me interested.
There was a movie I went to years ago, Driving Miss Daisy.
Oh yeah.
I remember
Denzel
that.
Yeah.
Washington was the chauffeur. And Miss Daisy.
No, that was Morgan Freeman.
Okay, you're right.
Morgan Freeman. But no, but Morgan Freeman and Denzel Washington played in Glory.
Oh, okay, I did.
Yeah. All right.
Well, anyway, Miss
Glory.
Daisy
In
was
Glory,
a
yeah.
Jewish, and she went to synagogue
Okay.
in that movie. That was quite prominent in there.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, that Jewishness was very prominent. You know, it was funny. The one line I really liked was that, so she's going to a Christmas party put on by her Jewish relatives, right?
Christmas
Party.
That's an interesting.
And she's upset, right? Because she's very Jewish, right? And religious. I don't celebrate Christmas. Meanwhile, Morgan Freeman's playing a Christian, you know, and he's like, well, I always have liked this time of year. And she says, well, I don't doubt it. You'll be the only Christian there.
I just can't wait to get home and start looking. So curious.
Well, there's a lot of Jewish persecution going on in the world now.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
in fact,
Yes.
this morning I listened to the radio just a little bit. Scott Hannon. And some guy called into him from Minot and started in about the Trump deal going on. And before you know it, he's on, well, you know, these Jews, warmongers out there, oh, Scott Hannon, he just cut him off right now. Okay, this is where you're going.
Yeah.
Jewish anti-Semitism again, you just cut them off.
Yep.
But there's a lot of it.
No, you know, in this country, go ahead.
Oh, in America, I see in the news, they've been
Yeah,
shooting up the
synagogue.
synagogues
Yep.
all over the US now.
But see, that goes back to what we're seeing,
Yeah.
what we'll see in Revelation and also in the prophets,
Yeah.
is that it's going to be so unsafe for Jews everywhere that they're going to have to go to Israel. They're going to have to go back into the land
Yeah,
because it is, even in this country, you know, this country
Yeah.
had for most part, I mean, there were moments in the South
Yeah.
where you had that, but what in a quote tolerant bastion, I'm using quotes,
Yeah.
Yeah,
like New York City.
yeah.
I mean, their synagogues are being burned and Jews are being killed and
Yeah.
or robbed and a lot of American
Yes.
Jews are starting to really consider what they call Aliyah,
Yes.
going back to Israel. And that's true in France. By the way, that influx of Muslim
Yeah.
community in Europe,
Yeah.
what is that doing to the Jewish community? It's causing them to leave.
Yeah.
mhm,
All right.
you know,
So we're actually seeing the fulfillment
Yes. Yes.
of Scripture. It has to be that way
For God.
before the end.
So my family follows Emir Safari,
Yeah, I've read some of his stuff.
and,
Yeah,
and he is a Christian Jew.
right.
Is that right?
That's
Is that
right.
how I've got it straight.
Yeah.
So there's one thing. He tells us a whole lot of things that regular news does not tell you.
Right.
I mean, he's talking about, first of all, storms all over the world. And the regular news is caught in, they only tell you certain things.
Right.
You
Right.
know, I feel like I'm getting a more general
Mm.
picture of what is going on.
But I tell you, the one thing I liked about him is he helped me a lot. Because like I said, you only get the news that you get, right?
Right,
I had heard some of these things, but when he was actually showing where Europe
is it okay?
is preparing,
What's in it?
and they don't even know it, but they're
potatoes, but
preparing
I said it
to be
before.
basically the seed of the Antichrist,
Take care of it.
because they have,
Okay, thank you.
like like in the prophecy, the false prophet is going to be like a goat, you know, and be like a lamb with horns, but
Okay.
and yet in the World Economic Forum and in the United Nations, they actually had a guy dressed like a goat
Really?
Right.
and going through these things in a celebration of Europe. And Europe was
Yes, I
traditionally
got it right here.
seen as a woman riding a beast. So it may be that
Seeing happen.
what you're seeing happen is that they're moving towards this preparing, and they don't even know it.
Right.
Right.
But what they're doing is fulfilling a lot of the images that you see in Scripture.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your oven's on home. So maybe you want to go shut it off.
No, I tried to call home and my phone just racked off and racked off and racked off, so I just shut it off again.
Well, I tell you what we're going to do. We're going to